There is one console that always has been and always will be very near and dear to me, and that console is the Atari 7800 Pro system. It's more accessible than ever thanks to the Atari 2600 Plus. For the first time ever, you can play these fantastic titles on high-definition televisions, in a clarity the likes of which we had never seen before. The 7800 retail library has its naysayers and defenders, but there are some really good gems on the console. Heck, there might even be a port or two that's superior to the NES. That's right, I said it, and it's true. But despite that, I want to look at the more exciting titles that have appeared on the console recently. I'm of course talking about the homebrew scene on the Atari 7800, and I think it's a perfect topic for our 5 to Try series of videos. So let's lay some ground rules really quickly before we jump into the list of 5 great 7800 homebrew games that every fan should try. First, I want to do this list a little differently. I only want to cover games that can still be purchased at the time of this video's release. There are tons of fantastic homebrew games that I want you all to play, but unfortunately, you can't track them down easily anymore. If I named off games like Popeye, Ricky and Vicky, and Baby Pac-Man, well, it would be for nothing because you can't easily find or play those games at the moment. At least, not legally. There might be ROMs floating around out there, but I don't talk about those things. I encourage you to buy ROMs from the developers so we can see more incredible homebrew in the future. So again, we are only going to cover games that you can still easily purchase, and avoid the crazy expensive, incredibly rare stuff. I'll be sure to let you know how and where you can grab each of these games as we go through them. So with that groundwork laid, I think we're finally ready to head into another episode of 5 to Try, Atari 7800 homebrew that every fan should at least play one time. And we'll start strong with one of my personal favorites, Time Salvo. This game is a twin-stick shooter, so if you've invested into a twin-stick controller from Retro Game Boys, OG Hugo's Retro Mod Shop, or even that Rolls-Royce that is the Ed Ladin Twin 78, then you might want to grab this one, just so you have another game to play with those controllers. But Time Salvo is incredibly different from the other twin-stick shooter on the 7800. You move around on a sort of grid, attempting to shoot enemies before they can shoot you, or before they can touch and kill the people you're trying to rescue. The squares that make up the grid are essentially houses that spawn the people you are trying to save, so keep your eyes peeled for any loading bars that pop up and start filling, because once they fill, you'll have a new person to save. There's a nice variety of enemies to battle with too, and they each have their own behaviors and strengths. Add in some fun bonus levels and easily obtainable secrets, and you have a game that is very much worth playing on the Pro system. And don't worry if you don't have a twin-stick controller, because Time Salvo plays pretty well with the single controller too. You might want to play it that way anyway, if you have the Atari Audio Vox, so you can hear the speech in the game as well. For the next choice, well, I'm cheating a little bit, because this game technically isn't a homebrew, but it's my list, so I'm including it. Missing in Action is a movie tie-in game that features the great Chuck Norris, and he threatened to roundhouse kick my head off if I didn't include it. It was originally being worked on for a release back in the late 80s, but was cancelled after nearly being completed. Now you can grab a copy from gooddealgames.com, and I personally recommend giving it a go. Not only is this the kind of action-adventure game that the 7800 desperately needed, but there is a nice variety in gameplay elements as well. Not everything works perfectly, but enough of it does to warrant owning and playing it. Levels where you take on soldiers via hand-to-hand combat, levels in a speedboat with a mounted machine gun, levels where you shoot down all your enemies, and there's even some platforming stages. And it all works surprisingly well for not being a completed game. I also like some of the background elements, like the villagers picking crops in the fields behind you. You can even take on a final boss in one of the craziest ending battles of all time. Personally, I think most 7800 fans need to experience Missing in Action, if only to get a taste of what could have been, had things panned out differently during the console's life. But I promise, that's the last canceled game on the list. The rest are all homebrews. And Reventuli is one of the best working on the Atari 7800 today, in my opinion anyway. And my favorite game of his is a side-scrolling shooter called Dragon's Havoc. You can also grab Dragon's Descent and Dragon's Cash, but those are adventure and puzzle games respectively. Dragon's Havoc has a great gimmick to it, and I really enjoyed it. You see, you gain more speed and power as you connect with consecutive hits on enemies, and you'll even get a shield if you can be really accurate. But a single miss and you'll become weaker and slower. So this game encourages you to be accurate with your shots, and punishes players who spray and pray. As you fly across the levels and caverns, you'll take on large dragon bosses and inch closer and closer to the massive castle in the background. There are some really nice graphical effects, and some levels that remind me of NES-style games like Metroid and Zelda 2. If you want a shooter that is challenging, fun, addictive, and different from almost everything else out there, then give Dragon's Havoc a try. You can pick it up over at Atari Age, and I highly recommend it. But one of the complaints about the 7800 since the console's beginning is that there are no good platformers on the system. Remember, the 7800 was a direct competitor to the Nintendo Entertainment System, which is home to some of the greatest platformers of all time. But the 7800 received Bentley Bear's Crystal Quest in the mid-2010s, and you can still pick up a copy today, and it plays brilliantly. Even if you only have a one-button joystick, it will work for you. You take control of Bentley and traverse forests, islands, mountains, clouds, and castles as you take on the evil Berthilda and get your beloved crystals back. Crystal Quest has more in common with games like Adventure Island and Wonder Boy than Super Mario Bros., but it's much more forgiving than those games with the food system, and I found it incredibly enjoyable. Once again, much like with Missing in Action, I encourage you to pick up this one if you want to see what could have been on the console had Atari valued quality software over all else back in the day. Did I mention that the game has pokey audio as well, so you can enjoy better sound effects and music than with most other 7800 games, but it's still using hardware that was available during the console's retail life. Give it a try if you love platformers and the Atari 7800 like I do. And finally, I want to feature a game that is available for everybody to enjoy in its full version, and it's completely free. Whether you choose to emulate or play on real hardware via flash cart, you'll want to download and play 1942 on the Atari 7800. I recommend playing it on the 7800 Game Drive or Dragonfly, so you can get the most complete experience with Yamaha audio. But if you only have the lowly Concerto flash cart, you will still be able to play it. And that was very nice of the developers to make it work on nearly everything, even if the latter is a lesser version. The scrolling is smooth and the shooting is near perfect. Enemies will fly in from all sides of the screen and even behind you, so you'll want to make sure you give yourself plenty of room to maneuver at a moment's notice. Nintendo fans have enjoyed this gem since the 80s, and probably assumed that the 7800 couldn't handle this arcade goodness from Capcom. Well, who's laughing now, Nintendo fanboys? You hear me? Hello? I'm talking to you. Anyway, regardless of all that, I think everybody needs to give 1942 a try on the Atari 7800. It's a great feat of programming and a lovely gift to the community. The fact that it's available for free for everybody to enjoy is just a beautiful gesture that I can't thank the programmers for enough. Thanks, guys, for giving the 7800 another incredible homebrew game that everybody can try and enjoy. And there you have it. 5 Atari 7800 games that everybody should try. We covered 3 games that you can purchase, an unreleased game that you can still purchase and enjoy today, and one that anybody can download and play whether they emulate on their computers or own a flash cart for their actual Pro system. But there is a ton more that you can play on the 7800, and still purchase from places like Video 61, Good Deal Games, and of course, Atari Age. Video 61 has fantastic versions of Venture and Animal Keeper. Good Deal Games has great previously unreleased stuff like Clax, Sirius, and Plutos, among others. And Atari Age has been home to some incredible homebrew since the birth of the homebrew scene on Atari consoles. So let me know what games you recommend people to grab and play on the Atari 7800. If we get enough suggestions, I might even do a commenters version of the video, where I list your recommendations. And let me know if you agree with my choices or not. Which homebrew is your favorite, and are there any upcoming games that you're really excited for? Let me know the answers to these questions and so much more in the comments down below. And please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you haven't already. We put out 2 videos every week, so be sure to hit the bell icon to be notified whenever we upload. And please consider joining us for our live streams. We do a few here and there, but we always do Man vs 7800 every other Saturday morning here on the channel. It's at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific, and you can catch the next one at the date and time on the screen right now. I'd also like to thank the following classy Atarians for supporting me on Patreon and YouTube memberships. You can too by heading over to patreon.com/7800progamer or clicking the join button below. So thank you to My Own Celestial, OG Hugo, Head Trauma Bob, Jolt 7800, Ball Gobbler, Socrates 63, Vince the Spook, Mr. Shua TV, Jeremiah Thomas, and Huge Ass 79. You guys rock, and I couldn't do this without you. Okay guys, with that, it's time to wrap up another edition of 5 to Try. Let me know what games we should feature next time, and I hope to see you all in that video. I've been the 7800 Pro Gamer, a homebrew connoisseur here at the Atari Network, and I want to remind everybody to stay classy, Atarians.